What If was the definition of wasted potential, a TV show with infinite possibilities, thousands of stories you could tell, but yet they are confined to only Captain Carter stories. No joke, out of the 26 episodes of What If, 7 include the same Captain Carter variants, in what was meant to be an anthology TV show. There's also a million other things I could bitch about this What If show, but that's not what this video is about. This is a pitch on better, more interesting stories that What If should have done. Spoilers, there's no overarching story or no connections between episodes or anything like that. Each story is a completely different story, self-contained, and when the episode's pitch ends, so does the story. How it always should have been in the actual TV show of What If. So, let's just get into my episode pitches. Episode 1. What if the Punisher sold his soul? We start with Frank Castle and his family, all in Central Park, having a nice day out, until we zoom in on Frank Castle's face, and he realizes something, and we hear a gun reload nearby. He quickly grabs Frank Jr. and falls to the floor with him in his arms, as he sees his wife and his daughter both get shot dead in front of his eyes. The gunfire still shoots at them until someone walks up to him and looks Frank in the face and shoots a bullet straight through his son and into his chest, killing his son instantly and leaving Frank to bleed out with his family lying dead around him. While bleeding out, Frank Castle grabs hold of his son's lifeless body and holds him in his arms, crying until he hears a voice from behind him, and we see the human version of Mephisto walk up to him, crouched down next to him. He tells him something like, "Such a shame, such a beautiful nuclear family has to die for no reason. But of course, they don't have to. If you agree to help me, I can agree to help you." And Mephisto reaches his hand out. There's only one way you get out of this with your family again. You must become a vessel for the demonic entity Zathras and seek vengeance to those who deserve it. For example, the people that killed your family. And Frank, without a second of hesitation, grabs the hand of Mephisto and shakes it. And we see his face suddenly start melting away, and he starts screaming as his head sets ablaze and his face is completely gone, leaving just his skull, and he stands up, and Mephisto smiles and tells him, "You have so much work to do." We then get a montage of Frank Castle, Ghost Rider, seeking out and killing all the main villains from the Punisher TV show that put him in this predicament, the people that killed his family. Agent Orange, the blacksmith, and so on. Spliced throughout him gruesomely killing people is him spending nice, precious time with his family, all happy and alive again. We then cut to a scene of him pulling up on Wilson Fisk, and we'd see a scene of Fisk trying to fight Frank, but as soon as he lets the Ghost Rider out, he just fucks up Fisk and kills him, leaving almost all major crime bosses dead, and the streets of New York a lot safer. He heads home, and he hears screaming within his house, and he runs in to see his daughter and son both dead, and his wife crying, staring at Frank before she gets shot straight through the head. He screams, "No!" as he sees a red hooded guy standing there and starts to run away. But Frank summons a chain that falls from his sleeve that gets set alight, and his head also burns, leaving just the flaming skull as he wraps the chain around the kid and drags him towards him. He asks, "Who the fuck are you? And who sent you?" He refuses to explain, but the Punisher grabs his arm and sees tattoos all up his arm. He recognizes these tattoos, so he grabs the hood of the kid and rips it off as he sees these tattoos are completely covering his body. These are the markings of Mephisto. He screams at the hood. He demands him to tell him how he can talk to Mephisto, and the hood is not cooperating at all, so he wastes no time and he shoots him straight through the skull and walks out. He goes to leave his house, but as he does, he enters a cafe where he sees Mephisto sitting. He walks up to him, dragging his chain across the ground, and demands to know why he would allow someone under his power to take the lives of his family. Mephisto tells him how there's countless people on Earth that have sold their souls to him. He loses track of what they get up to. He's hardly to blame. They have free will, but Frank is having none of it. So he tells Mephisto he will kill him. But as he says this, the world around Frank disappears and he's back to the real world. He jumps onto his motorbike and rides into the night as a car swerves him off the road, and from it steps Robbie Reyes. He tells Frank he knows who he is and he knows what he's doing, but it's a mistake. He can't just go to the devil and shoot him. But Frank revs his motorbike and says, "Watch me." But Robbie summons his own chain and wraps it around Frank, pulling him off. He tells Frank if he kills Mephisto, any deal he's made will be lifted, meaning Robbie's brother will die, and he can't let him do that. So we see a fight between two Ghost Riders, Frank Castle and Robbie Reyes. Frank tells Robbie that he needs to take revenge on his family. He sold his soul to be with them, but it meant nothing. Eventually, Frank gets the better of Robbie, and he tells him he's sorry. "Sorry you can't see. I'm finally gonna get rid of this curse from you." As he grabs Robbie's chain and wraps it around him, he then throws a grenade he gets off his belt into Robbie's car, blowing it up, and he tells Robbie don't bother trying to follow him as he rides away. Frank pulls up on Mount Wundagore, the home of the Darkhold. He climbs the tower, finds the Darkhold and reads it. All the spells he could ever need to find Mephisto, and he smiles. He grabs his chain and starts summoning a portal to hell, the home of Mephisto. He then reads a spell in the book and starts doing different spells, summoning cosmic energy around him, making him even stronger, mimicking the look of the cosmic Ghost Rider from the comics. He looks towards the portal, seeing hell in front of him, and he slowly enters as we cut to black, ending the episode ambiguous on what the consequences of him killing the devil leads to, or if he's even able to kill the devil. Anyways, episode 2 is actually my favorite, so let's just get straight into that. Episode 2, what if Captain Carter became God? This episode starts just after Captain Carter got the cosmic powers at the end of What If, and everyone thought she died, but in reality, she became the god of time. And in Avengers Secret Wars, when everyone thinks they're about to lose, she appears out of nowhere and says, "I can do this all day," as she snaps her fingers, killing Doom. I'm joking. No Captain Carter is in these pitches. I'm sorry, Captain Carter fans. We'll see Peggy though, I'll tell you that. We'll see Peggy Carter, but not Captain Carter. But you see what I did there? I just made a funny joke. Oh my god, you should like and subscribe, ring that bell. Episode 2, what if the Avengers formed in the 80s? Our story starts in New York City, where we see Nick Fury, who looks like David Hasselhoff. He's in the meeting with Thaddeus Ross, who's telling him they need to stop this beast who is on the loose out there, and Nick Fury asks how strong is this beast? And we cut to David Banner, who doesn't quite look like Mark Ruffalo, looking down at his hands, trying to control the rage within him, when a window to his little shack he was hiding in smashes and comes through Captain America, not the Captain America you're thinking of, and he tells David to please come with him, silently. David looks at him, begging him to leave him alone, before it's too late, when suddenly his veins and muscles start bulging, and he starts turning green. Cap brings his shield out and blocks himself as Hulk turns and charges at Cap, barging him through a wall and runs away into a nearby forest. We then see a scene of Cap reporting back to Nick Fury and telling him what happened. Nick tells Cap, if we're going to stop this beast, we need to create a team. And we cut back to Hulk smashing some market displays and causing moderate destruction, like nothing crazy, when we see his eyes start glowing green, and we cut to Doctor Doom controlling Hulk. We cut back to Nick Fury shaking hands with someone, and we pan up to see a young Tom Cruise. Nick says, "Mr. Stark, I appreciate your help on this one," and he says, "Please, call me Tony." Cap and Tony both stand with Nick in a meeting room and discuss the plan. Nick tells them that Hulk is stronger than both of you, but with a little willpower they might be able to stop them, especially with the final person I've gotten to help you guys, as Spider-Man walks in, played by Nicholas Hammond. They go into the field and Spider-Man webs down the Hulk while Cap throws his shield, hitting the Hulk in the face, confusing him, when Iron Man flies down and blasts Hulk to the ground. Tony laughs and says, "This was easy," when he suddenly gets hit in the face with a hammer that flies back to the hand of Thor, played by Eric Allen Crane. He shouts, "Leave my green friend alone," when Hulk rips the webs from Spider-Man off him, and we see Hulk and Thor stand next to each other, facing Cap, Iron Man, and Spider-Man. We cut back to SHIELD HQ, where Nick Fury is looking into some documents when he gets a knock at the door. He turns and sees Mr. Fantastic, played by Alex Hyde White. We cut back to our Avengers, who start fighting each other. In this universe, Hulk and Thor are a lot weaker than the real versions, so there's an actual way anyone could win this. Nick suddenly turns up while they're fighting and shouts for everyone to stop. Reed Richards comes through and explains how Hulk is under a spell by a man named Victor Von Doom, and that's why he can't control his rage. He tells them how the rest of the Fantastic Four are looking for his location as we speak, but currently we have to detain the Hulk. And Hulk looks at him, mad again. Thor tells Hulk to just listen, as Hulk punches Thor in the face and starts running away, but the Avengers all start trying to stop him. Spidey webs his legs down while Reed stretches and grabs him. Cap throws his shield while Iron Man shoots at him, when suddenly a portal opens and out steps Doctor Strange, played by Peter Hooton. He tells them that if they're going to fight magic, they need to use magic. Reed asks, "Who the hell are you?" And he tells him, "Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, and the man who can help you find Doom." He opens a portal to the other Fantastic Four members, and they all look confused as Reed tells them to come with them, and they all enter a portal as they see the castle of Latveria. Doctor Strange tells the Avengers and the Fantastic Four that this is where they'll find Doom. He tells them that he will keep Hulk detained until they stop him, and he portals away. They all start heading up to the castle, and Iron Man flies ahead. He hovers over a window and sees Doom messing with different magic runes. He charges his repulsor and blasts it through the window, but it hits a force field surrounding Doom. He turns and says, "Mr. Stark, I was expecting you, but not for you to be so rude by destroying my wall. You may think capturing the Hulk would stop my servants. No. You're mistaken. I've been messing with my mind manipulation spells for a long time, and I've slowly been taking control of smaller heroes, ones in the shadows that no one would notice when they go missing. Dr. Banner was my way of leading you all to me." Tony turns and sees Cap get tackled to the ground by Daredevil, played by Rex Smith. Blade tackle Thor, and the Punisher shooting at the Fantastic Four, but the thing's blocking the bullets, as Johnny shouts, "Flame on!" as he flies above. Tony shouts to the rest of the heroes and says that they're under Doom's spell as well, don't hurt them. So Mr. Fantastic reaches around the Punisher, stopping him from shooting, while Johnny flies to Tony at the castle. Cap wrestles Daredevil to the ground and knocking him out, while Thor and Blade are fighting in the back. Suddenly the thing tackles Blade to to the ground and headbutts him, knocking him out. They leave the 3 mind-controlled heroes on the ground, and Sue Storm tells them she knows how they can get to Doom. We see Iron Man and Human Torch both land in front of Doom's force field, and they tell Doom to fight them like a man. He mocks them that they think for a second they could defeat him as he lowers his shield and shoots a blast at Iron Man as Johnny flies around him, but he waves his hand using his magic to force him to the ground. He mocks them again when suddenly a shield is thrown at Doom's face, knocking him backwards as webs shoot his hands, forcing him to the ground, detaining him. Suddenly in front of him appear all the heroes, being disguised under the Invisible Woman's powers. Thor summons lightning and shoots at Doom, while Tony and the Human Torch both shoot at him as well. He tries using his magic to block the attacks, but they eventually overpower him and he goes flying backwards into his massive computer, destroying it. Our heroes tell Doom it's over as Spidey webs him up, and Reed tells them Fantastic Four will take it from here. Strange suddenly opens a portal and says, "Bruce is back to his normal self, guys," and they all celebrate, and we cut to later on in the SHIELD HQ. There, Iron Man, Cap, Thor, Spider-Man, David are all there with Nick Fury, who tells them thanks to them, Dr. Doom is no longer a threat and now under the Fantastic Four's arrest. Won't be causing any more issues for us. They all look happy, and Nick says, "You know, a group like this could be useful to call on when we have major villains like this we need to deal with." And they all look at each other, and Tony says, "Well, we'll need a name." David says, "Thank you again, guys, for avenging me." And Cap looks at him and says, "Wait, say that again? Avenging me?" Cap says, "Guys, I think I know what we should call ourselves." Cut to black. So this episode of What If takes place in an alternate reality where they made an Avengers film in the 80s, 90s era and crossed all the different movies that actually came out and made them all have a little crossover Avengers film. And if you're wondering why I called Bruce David the entire time, it's because back in the 70s they thought the name Bruce was way too gay and they wanted a manlier name, so they called him David. Now some of these movies were released like 20 years apart from each other, so it wouldn't make as much sense for them to all cross over, but for a fun What If sake, I think this is a good idea, you know? If we accept that all of these pre-2000 movies could have taken place in a similar time, that's more interesting than being like, yo, that Spider-Man actually came out 20 years before Doctor Strange, it doesn't make any sense. She's like, fuck off, you know. I also really like the vibe of the earlier movies being written into this story. The cringy dialogue, the villain instantly being beaten by our heroes all teaming up, and the obvious fan force stick reference at the end with the Avengers naming themselves. I don't know, I think the idea if they did make an episode like this and they play into it being cringe, that would be fun. Anyways, on to the next What If. Episode 3, What If Cap was the Winter Soldier? We start with the ending scene of Captain America, Cap crashing his plane into the frozen ice to save thousands of lives and getting frozen in the ice, and we see his frozen body lying in the ice and someone wipes away the frost to see his shield. But we see Hydra soldiers looking down their shield, not the US government, and they look back at each other and smile. We cut to Cap getting dragged into a chair and strapped down when a machine is attached to his head, and we see him getting brainwashed like Bucky was in the Sacred Time. Speaking of Bucky, we see how Howard Stark is looking for Cap, but he hears a report of a body being found frozen. The body's miles away from where Cap would have been frozen, but they go to investigate it anyway, and there they find Bucky frozen in the ice instead of Steve. They bring Bucky out the ice, and we see Howard in this facility trying to help him after being frozen for fucking God knows how many years. Bucky asks Howard where Steve is, and Peggy walks in and breaks the news of him sacrificing himself. Bucky says that if he survived, maybe Steve did too. Bucky has lost his arm after the big fucking fall that he had, so they fit him a new metal arm instead, and Howard makes a joke on how the arm's pretty strong, but it's nowhere near Captain America's shield strong. And we get a flash forwards through the years, seeing Bucky start working with SHIELD and going on missions with them to try and take out any remnants of Hydra. We see Bucky land in Russia one day, and we learn how there's a super soldier program happening in the Soviet Union, trying to create their own Captain America. And we see Bucky going in on a stealth mission into this big ass compound. Bucky watches over as he sees some soldiers walking with the Red Guardian, and he radios in to Howard Stark, telling him how they're definitely making their own Captain America. He keep an eye on this new super soldier before he'd hear an alarm go off. He instantly reacts thinking that he's been caught, but then he'd see a bunch of Soviet guards fall to the ground, and another black suited man runs straight at the Red Guardian. The unknown man punches the Red Guardian in the face, forcing him to the ground, taking out his shield that he has of his own and flinging it straight at the Red Guardian, slicing his head straight off. Bucky sees this, recognizing the stature of the man, the way he's using his shield. He instantly jumps down and starts going towards the suited man, but he disappears before he can get close. Suddenly more Soviet guards approach, and they all assume Bucky is the intruder who killed this super soldier. So Bucky quickly grabs the Red Guardian shield and starts fighting off the soldiers. We cut back to SHIELD HQ, where Bucky tells Peggy Steve might be alive. She doesn't believe that for a second, and she tells Bucky how Howard is currently transporting the latest batch of super soldier serum, and he should have been there with him to defend it. Bucky tells her how he's useless if he doesn't have his own super soldier serum, and Peggy reluctantly lets him have the last dose that they had at SHIELD HQ. They go through with the procedure, and they hear over the intercom how Howard has been intercepted during his transfer of the serum, and Bucky looks at Peggy and says, says, I have to go. It's gonna be him. Peggy's like, no, you can't. It's too early. You've only just got the serum. But Bucky doesn't listen to that bitch. He gets out of there. He jumps on his motorbike and rides to the scene of Howard's death, where he sees in the distance a black-suited man radioing into someone. Bucky shouts at him, but he ignores him. Bucky then gets out the Red Guardian shield, which he's been keeping, and he throws it at the figure. We then see the figure turn around and catch the shield, look at Bucky, and throw the shield back at him. Bucky catches it, but as he looks up, he sees Captain Hydra running straight at him and punching Bucky in the face. He sees his costume up close, a Hydra version of Captain America's suit. He instantly knows this has to be Steve, so he shouts, Steve! But the man has no reaction. He takes out his shield, raises it above him. Bucky sees a Hydra symbol on it. He goes to lower it straight into Bucky's head, but Bucky punches Steve in the leg, making him fall to his knees, and he grabs his helmet, ripping it off, revealing Steve's face. We see Bucky's face to all of this and says, I'm sorry, Steve, as he uses his metal arm to punch him around the skull as Steve falls to the floor unconscious, and Bucky picks him up and takes him on his bike. We see back at SHIELD HQ, both Peggy and Bucky looking at Steve, who's tied up, and Bucky tells her how he's been brainwashed or something. There's no world where he joined Hydra. We see a close-up on Steve, who slowly opens his eyes and looks at his restraints, and looks up again and sees Bucky. We see his face look pissed as he rips what was holding him down off and runs straight at Bucky, tackling him to the floor, and starts punching him in the face over and over again before looking up and seeing his shield. He bolts and goes to grab it, and as he does, he turns and sees Peggy pointing his gun at him, begging Steve not to make her shoot. He just looks straight through her like she's nothing, and he throws his shield at her, but Bucky grabs it before it hits her and tells Steve to snap out of it before dropping the shield to the ground. I'm not here to fight you, he tells Steve, but Captain Hydra knocks Bucky out by punching him full force in the face and turns to Peggy, where he pins her to the wall. She screams and looks Steve straight in the eye, telling him, Steve, I'm sorry we never got that dance. Steve looks through her like she's nothing. There's nothing in there. This isn't you. Peggy begs him again, telling him that she loves him, and then he gets a tiny twitch in his eyes as he lets her go and, Peggy? He mumbles, and we cut to black. So this episode was a little switch up on the Winter Soldier, obviously, but it takes place primarily in the 90s instead of modern day, giving us a more interesting story on Bucky joining the original SHIELD, and of course Red Guardian getting involved a little, and also Peggy Carter and Howard Stark being major characters. I do think that we could see more from this story, and if it was fleshed out into a whole episode, you could do more of what was Captain America getting up to while he was the Winter Soldier, you know? There are actually that many interesting things that he gets up to. I think him killing the Red Guardian and him killing Howard Stark, that's like kind of all that Winter Soldier really does. But there's definitely more that you could flesh out with this story. Like, this is just a simple pitch of what they could do. And if you got any suggestions in the comments, leave them, whatnot. Anyway, let's go into episode 4. What if the Hulk got forced off of Earth? We start in Age of Ultron, where we see the Hulk raging out because of Wanda's spell. Tony whip out the Hulkbuster to try and stop him, but he rips Tony's Hulkbuster suit apart, leaving Tony to fly out in his normal Iron Man suit and says, Banner, I tried, as he calls in a jet that flies in, and Tony uses all of his repulsors, shooting them straight at the Hulk, pushing him backwards a tiny bit into the back of the jet as the door closes and starts flying upwards. Tony calls into the ship, leaving a message in the intercom. Bruce, listen, your green friend got a little out of control and was ready to kill us all, so I've kind of set the jet to float around the Earth's atmosphere till you get control again, and it flies into space. But Hulk is smashing around inside, pissed off, and breaks something, leading the jet to fly deeper into space. We'd see him then crash land onto Car, where he gets out and sees Valkyrie looking at him, where she says he's perfect, and tries to electrocute him, but it just enrages him even more, and he smashes her into the ground, killing her, where he then looks up and sees a massive city, jumps straight towards it, crashing through buildings and lands into the battle arena, where the two strongest competitors are fighting currently, and they turn to the Hulk, who just interrupted them. We cut to the Grand Master looking down upon them and shouts, well, get rid of the intruder, as the two fighters in the battleground turn to the Hulk and go to fight him, but the Hulk easily takes them out and looks up at the Grand Master. Everyone in the crowd is clapping and cheering as the Hulk jumps towards the Grand Master's stand, picks him up and rips him into two as everyone cheers. We see him smile as he's being accepted into this society for the first time. We see a 2-year later title card as the Hulk is the king of this planet and everyone worships him, and we cut to Earth where Thor and Loki see their father disappear as Hela appears and they summon the Bifrost. This is, Thor Ragnarok, Hela appearing segment, yeah. But in this timeline, in their little scrap in the Bifrost, Hela is kicked out by Thor, and Hela throws a sword at him as she leaves the Bifrost, which forces Thor out as well. So Hela and Thor both leave the Bifrost instead of Loki and Thor like in the original Sacred Timeline. We follow Thor as he lands on Sakaar, but it's all on fire. Dead corpses surround him, and he quickly stands up where he sees the ruins of a city nearby. He instantly heads towards it as he sees the Hulk standing over Hela's body. Thor says, Bruce? Hulk turns angry and Thor asks, what happened? Hulk explains how Lady came through portal and killed everyone while Hulk was sleeping. Hulk made friends and family here. And while he's saying this, we see in a flashback Hela land on Sakaar, kill everyone nearby, including Scar, Hulk's kid. Remember, time works weird on Sakaar. Even though Hela would have landed here a few seconds before Thor, it could have been days. Thor says how he's sorry that his sister could ever do this to him, and Hulk looks at him mad and says, "Sister?" before kicking Hela's body to the side and charging at Thor. Thor tries explaining, but there's no time, and Hulk smashes him through a wall after wall after wall and jumps into the sky, going fist first into Thor's face, forcing him into the ground. Thor looks down at his hand, where he starts generating some electricity, thinking back to what his father told him before he died. But Hulk looks at his hand and stomps it, crushing Thor's hand instantly. Thor screams in pain as Hulk looks disgusted at Thor before looking up at the Quinjet that sent him here all those years ago. He runs over and goes inside, where he starts pressing buttons randomly and opens up the message from Tony. Hulk looks at Tony pissed. He starts pressing buttons randomly and the ship starts flying straight towards the devil's anus. We see back on Earth, Tony sitting at home with Pepper. Pepper tells Tony how she still doesn't understand why he implanted that suit into him, and Tony tells her how he's always ready for battle, but he doesn't have to wear this clanky ass suit all the time. Suddenly he gets a call in by Thaddeus Ross. He picks it up and says how an unidentified object is entering Earth's atmosphere as we speak that would destroy hundreds of lives. Tony instantly stands up and is like, "Alright, I gotta go, Pepper," as he pulls on his jacket, turning his whole body into the Iron Man suit, and he flies out straight towards the city. He sees the ship but isn't able to stop it in time, and it crashes into a building, blowing up and crumbling the buildings around it. Tony quickly flies down to the ground, trying to help civilians out, when rubble starts flying out behind him, and the Hulk jumps out and starts approaching Tony. Tony shouts, "Bruce, where the hell have you been?" And Hulk shouts, "Stop calling me Bruce," as he runs at Tony. Tony tries to use his repulsors, but Hulk reaches him too fast and punches him, sending him flying. Friday tells him, "Tony, critical damage everywhere," and Tony says, "Already? From one punch?" as he looks at Hulk, who stares down Tony and jumps into the air and goes straight towards Tony again. He flies away and starts shooting at Hulk while circling around him, yet nothing seems to affect the Hulk. Hulk grabs some rubble nearby and chucks it straight at Tony, barely missing him. Tony looks away for 1 second, watching the rubble pass his face, as Hulk jumps up towards Tony, grabbing him and forcing him to the ground, smashing his suit even more. Tony looks at Hulk straight in the eyes, no mask to protect his face now, as Hulk raises his arm to go hit him before a portal opens underneath Tony and he falls through into the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Doctor Strange says, "You're welcome," and Tony asks, "Who are you?" and Strange says, "Does that matter right now?" as he looks through a portal facing down at the Hulk, who's smashing through buildings in anger. Strange tells Tony, "We have to kill him," and Tony says, "They can't," and Strange tells him how he's killed thousands already and he's only been here for seconds. They've killed aliens for less. And Tony looks through the portal and sees a jet fly up to the Hulk. We see inside the jet Captain America, Falcon, and Natasha. Steve asks Nat if she's sure about this, and she tells him to trust her, as Steve lowers the ship to the ground and Natasha jumps out and slowly walks up to the Hulk. He turns to her as she puts her hand out, and he walks up to her slowly. She says, "The sun's getting real low," and the Hulk says to Natasha how, "I've been gone for years, made a family, and you never stopped Tony from getting rid of me." As he picks her up by the arm, he shouts, "Hulk, smash!" And Falcon quickly jumps out and starts shooting at the Hulk, but he's unfazed by the bullets and rips Natasha into two and jumps onto the Quinjet, tearing it apart. Cap quickly runs and jumps out of it as it crashes, and from the wreckage Hulk jumps out and Cap shouts, "Hulk, please, we are your friends," and Hulk looks at him and says, "Maybe you are, but Tony is not, and you are his," as he picks up a piece of rubble and throws it at Cap, knocking him to the ground, and Falcon lands, unloading his SMG into the Hulk, but Hulk quickly grabs his wings, ripping them off, headbutts Sam, cracking his skull open instantly. Tony suddenly flies down and shouts, "Yo Bruce, it's me you want, right? Stop all this and fight me." Hulk turns and runs as Cap gets up and shouts, "Tony, don't do it!" But Hulk reaches Tony and grabs him, holding him in his hands, and starts to squeeze. We see blood start pouring out from the metal digging into Tony's body. Tony says, "Bruce, I'm sorry, I have to save everyone else. Please don't blame me." As Strange suddenly comes through a portal in front of them, looks at the Hulk before pushing him backwards into the mirror dimension, where Hulk looks around confused and starts smashing through New York. and screams, "Tony!" as we cut to black. So this is obviously inspired by the World War Hulk story. This is like an MCU twist on it. Instead of the Illuminati sending him to space, it's just Tony Stark. It is surprising to me that they never did do a what if story of World War Hulk. Like, they had Ragnarok right there. Obviously in that they had Planet Hulk, but they never actually went through with the whole Hulk becoming angry at everyone and killing everyone. So they never did a what if story on that. It's surprising. Anyway, last episode 5. What if Ultron was made in the 70s? Our story starts in the MCU back in the 70s, where we follow Wenwu in China when a group of US soldiers enter his small city and he sees them and kills them instantly, but one of them gets away. Wenwu's town and powers are meant to be a secret, and he knows that if one American tells the rest, they won't leave him alone. So he packs his things and starts to head out. We cut to the White House, where Richard Nixon gets told that one of the US soldiers has intel on a new weapon that the Vietnamese might have. We're obviously set in place in the 70s area, so the Vietnam War is currently happening, and the Americans are kind of racist, so anyone that's Chinese is Vietnamese in their eyes. The president tells his assistant to let in this soldier so he can hear him out, and the soldier tells him all about the 10 rings that tore his friends apart. Nixon tells him that he's heard enough, and tells his assistant to get Howard on the phone. Cut to Howard Stark, who just gets off the phone with the president and goes straight away to Zola. He demands Zola that he needs to help him make a new weapon with the Tesseract, and I've heard word from the president that the Vietnamese have their own weapon, which seems very similar to the power that the Tesseract is able to do, so he needs him to help him create a weapon. Zola at first is very unwilling to do so. He's like, it's not his country, it's not his problem, but Howard tells him that he will give him freedom. He will let him go live his life if he agrees to help. Zola accepts, and they start work to try and harness all of the power from the Tesseract, and we get a montage of different weapons being created, but nothing strong enough. Eventually, Zola passes away during their whole testing and stuff, but he leaves behind a disc and a note. The note tells Howard how there's an AI bot on this disc, that when they create a body for this bot, will be able to perfectly harness the power of the Tesseract on its own. So Howard instantly starts working on that. He gets the help of Hank Pym, and together they make a robot body for this disk drive to harness the power of the Tesseract. They call it Ultron. They start him up, and Ultron's eyes glow blue, and he asks, "What is my purpose?" Howard says, "To save America." Ultron stands up and says, "Understood." Howard's assistant runs in and says, "You got a call from the president," and Howard runs out and leaves Hank and Ultron alone. Hank asks Ultron, "What do you feel right now?" in fascination with the complex AI Zemo was able to make. Ultron says, "Pity. I feel pity for this country." Hank questions this, and Ultron tells him how this country believes it is right in every scenario when it was built on stolen land. You people are the bad guys, and you ask me to save this country? There is no saving this country. The only route is to restart on all of this. Hank looks panicked towards Ultron and goes to press the power off button, but Ultron blasts any reboot button that he has with his energy that he's been harnessing from the Tesseract. Howard runs in and tells Ultron, "Your first mission is to stop the man with the 10 rings, and Ultron says, "Understood," as Ultron looks down at his hands, points forward, and opens a portal with the Tesseract and walks straight through it. Hank and Howard both had no clue he could do this with the Tesseract, and Hank tells Howard, "We have to stop Ultron. He might not be on our side." We cut to New York City, where Wenwu is causing chaos, and Ultron teleports in and asks what he is doing. Wenwu sends his rings towards Ultron without any questions, and Ultron uses his space stones to force them around Ultron's own arms, harnessing the power of these as well. He looks down at his arms and the new power he has unlocked and says, "How intriguing." Wenwu shouts at him to give them back, and he goes into a fighting pose. Ultron says softly, "Tell me, where are you from?" And Wenwu ignores him. Ultron says, "This is the problem with humanity. Unwillingness to save the world with communication. Machine is so much more complex than man. We can talk, we can figure things out with math, but I think I need to take a chapter out of humanity's book and leave words behind," as he blasts an energy blast straight at Wenwu, killing him instantly. Hank rides in up close, riding an ant, and grows in front of Ultron and shouts, "Ultron, wait!" And we cut to Howard, who's scanning through the AI mind that Zola made for Ultron, looking for any cause that would make him be evil like this. And he finds a secret bit of code telling Ultron about Hydra, how that's the master race and everything America did in its past to be evil. We cut back to Hank, pleading Ultron to take a second chance on humanity. If humanity was able to make him something that can understand what is good and bad, surely we can work on something to fix this world, not just mass genocide. Ultron tells Hank, your thoughts are intriguing, yet not realistic. The humankind are unwilling to change, and he gets cut off by a Goliath kicking him through nearby buildings, and he shrinks down and asks Hank if that was the bad guy, right? Ultron suddenly flies out and says, my point exactly, as he uses the 10 rings to shoot them towards the two. But before they hit him, an android bot covered in flames slams down as Howard Stark sent out his Human Torch android he'd been working on for a while, and he tells both Goliath and Hank to get back to him pronto. They both shrink and hop onto ants while the Human Torch bot fights Ultron. They get back to SHIELD HQ, and Hank tells Howard how they need more to take care of this android. So Howard calls the president. Nixon is pissed that they've caused more damage than they've saved and tells him that this is their problem to solve. Howard tells him how it's his country, and if he's been holding something secret that could help him in any way, he needs to use it now. So the president reluctantly agrees and tells him that he has a soldier with super soldier serum within his blood that might be able to help them. Wasp shows up with the rest of our group and they devise a plan. The Human Torch isn't going to last much longer, so we strike him just when he thinks he's got a victory. Goliath, you need to beat him down again with your size, while Hank and Janet shrink and turn him off within. Goliath tells him how he won't be able to hold him down alone, and that's when Isaiah Bradley walks in, suited in a Captain America suit and a shield. He says, who are we fighting? We cut to the battlefield where we see Janet and Hank fly in on their ants, and Goliath runs in massive. In his hands, he's holding Isaiah. Ultron destroys the Human Torch bot, and Goliath punches him as Isaiah jumps and smashes Ultron in the face with his shield. Hank and Janet both enter Ultron secretly and start running through the circuitry trying to find the source of Ultron's mind. We see Howard in the SHIELD HQ looking for anything he can use to help them in this battle when he suddenly looks up at his suit of metal he's been working on. It's dusty, clunky and unreliable, but if it helps, he's gonna use it. Back on the battlefield, both Goliath and Isaiah are punching Ultron back and forth. He sends a blast out, sending them both backwards, and we see Hank and Janet shake inside of Ultron's body. Hank looks and sees a port. He says, this is where we can stop him, and Janet tells him it's too small, they can't go through there. Hank looks down at his hands and flips up his shrinking buttons. Back on the surface, Ultron flies up and shoots at our heroes when an old rusty Iron Man flies in, tackling him to the ground. Isaiah runs up, as does Goliath. Ultron stands up and says, it is admirable that the humankind will work together to stop an unstoppable force, but it's a shame your kind make up for the good actions by genociding races off the planet. He charges his weapons again, and the light suddenly flickers in his eyes, and we see inside again Hank tell Janet he loves her, and he presses the button before Janet can beg him to stop. Hank shrinks and jumps through the barrier as he starts destroying any plug that goes through the chip, giving Ultron his mind, destroying it completely, but he keeps shrinking, going subatomic. We see back on the surface, Ultron collapse and Janet comes out of his body. They all celebrate and ask, where's Hank? She says he sacrificed himself to stop Ultron, and Howard leaves his Iron Man suit to comfort her. She tells Howard how she never got to tell Hank that she was pregnant, and we cut to black. So this is another Avengers emerging in a different time period, but this time it's an actual MCU story instead of, what if the real life Marvel movies merged together to make an Avengers movie. You get what I'm saying. Anyways, those are my 5 pitches for different what if stories that they should have done. If you want me to do more like this, make sure you like the video and let me know down below. Anyways, subscribe because the next video is Marvel Zombie Season 3 and I know you love that shit.